my name is Christina Dobie, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Dorothea Puente. And Dorothea ran a boarding house in the 1980s in the downtown area of Sacramento. Super nice looking old lady, and she actually died 6 years ago in Chowchilla prison while she was serving multiple life sentences. So it turns out that the sweet little old lady actually was a serial killer, and at the time she was accused of killing 9 people. She was brought to trial on the 7 dead bodies that they found in her very backyard, like with her gardening, and she was convicted of killing 3 of them. So this all happened just right downtown in the Mansion Flats district. The house is still there, and like I said, you can do tours of it. The people who live there are a little interesting, however, they're very friendly. So if you go, you can tell it's her house because there's actually a statue of her out on the front patio in her red coat, which she got arrested in. So really interesting place to go to, which is how I came to find it. And her background is that her parents passed away before she was 10. Her dad first, and her mom died just a year later. So she ended up getting put into the system, foster care, went to multiple homes, didn't really work out well for her, and she had to get crafty of how she was going to end up surviving and living. So there's many stories, mostly shared by her, and it's hard to tell what she was lying about and what she wasn't. So for one thing, she says she was in Japan when all the bombs hit. She also says that she was a Rockette in the New York area doing dancing, for New Year's and stuff, the Rockettes. And she also claims that she's had all of these children. She had multiple marriages, but she says that there were multiple children that all died except for one surviving child. She had a set of twins that died, all these people dying. And you wonder, well, did they actually get killed by their mother if they were born? So who knows about that? But in 1982, a few people complained about her. She was drugging elderly men, and then she was taking their valuables. So their pension checks, their jewelry, watches, anything that they might have had in the house. She would get them high on this drug that actually made them like in a comatose state, but they were still conscious, so they could actually watch her robbing them. So it made it really easy for them to go and plead their case to the police, and she was actually convicted back in 82 of this forgery and fraud case. So that ended up, she got sentenced to 5 years. She served 3, and while she was in, before her release in 1985, she met a man. And this guy came and picked her up from jail when she got out and got her moved back into her home on F Street. Then Dorothea hired another man to do some construction around the house and build this large 6-foot wooden box. After the 6-foot wooden box was built, she paid the man $600 and gave him a nice red truck and asked him if he could then help her move. Now this big, huge 6-foot box that's filled with books, and she needed to get it out of the house. So they were driving down the river road, and actually she pulled over. She asked the guy to pull over, and they dumped the box on the side of the river, and he's saying, "Are you sure? Is this what you want to do?" And I thought this was your belongings. And that box was discovered 3 years later by a fisherman with her dead boyfriend's body in it. So when you fast forward from that, this was in 1985. A year later, she gets a business partner, and it's a woman that she's friends with, and they're delivering lunches to people's houses, and everything seems good. Dorothea invites her to come and move into the house with her. And just a few months after she moves in, for some reason, the best friend ends up committing suicide. And nothing was really thought of it, but her death certificate says she committed suicide. Nobody looked into it. Dorothea seemed like just a nice person. No real reason to be concerned, except for nobody's doing background checks on her, or they would know that she's been drugging people just recently and stealing from them. So after that, a few other people move into the boarding house. They're moving in and moving out kind of quickly, which isn't necessarily really weird for boarding houses. People don't always stay there for that long. Sometimes they're only there for a day or two. So then a guy gets placed by a social worker, Bert Montoya. And Bert Montoya actually has a social worker who cares about him. And she checks in with him all the time. And all of a sudden, Bert goes missing. So the social worker calls and says, "Hey, I can't find Bert. Do you know where he is?" "Oh, yes. Dorothea does know. Bert has gone down to Mexico to see some friends, and there's this weird elaborate story. Now all of a sudden Bert's calling the social worker from Mexico, and it's not really Bert, and the social worker's just like, this is crazy. I'm sending over the police. So Officer or Detective Cabrera gets there, and he's the gentleman that I was able to interview there at the house just a couple of years ago during one of the tours. So he says that they get to the house. Dorothea seems like this nice little lady, and it turns out that they hadn't done background checks. They had been getting notices from different people around the neighborhood that there was like a weird smell going on, and the neighbors were actually just leaving their windows shut. So Dorothea was saying, oh, I've got like a plumbing problem out in the back, it's raw sewage, blah blah blah. Nobody looked into it. So the cops get there and they're like, wow, there is a really strong odor coming from this backyard. So they go down with shovels and they find a dead body. So they think, oh my gosh, this is crazy. They create a crime scene. Dorothy is allowed to stay there at the house. They're not thinking that it's her at all. They're thinking there's some psychopath staying in the boarding house who's been slaughtering people. So the police leave. They come back the next day. Dorothy has gone out to get coffee at the Claritin. Everything seems fine until they find the second body. So at the second body, they think, okay, we need to talk to Dorothea. And they go to find her, and she's totally missing. So weeks go by. They can't figure out where Dorothea is. They find 5 more dead bodies. So now it's a total of 7 dead bodies in the backyard. And Dorothea's on the run. So a man that she met down in Los Angeles found out, hey, this is a lady in Sacramento that's on the news that has all these dead bodies in her backyard, and he calls the police. The police go down to Los Angeles, and they arrest Dorothea for the second time now for doing crazy stuff with people that she probably should have been, you know, if they had done any background checks on her, she wouldn't have been allowed to do the boarding house. So now they've got her incarcerated, and the theory that she's giving out, oh, all of these people were old and sick, and they all died of natural causes. But what she was doing was she was cashing in all of their checks. So she was actually making about $5,000 a year, or excuse me, $5,000 a month by cashing in everybody's different welfare and pension checks, even though they were dead. So she had another forgery case going on. And during the trial, she had 130 witnesses brought against her. And she was definitely convicted of the 3 murders, which is weird because they did find 7 bodies, but she was convicted of 3. So while she was there in jail, a lot of people, there's been documentaries made about her. House Hunters just recently, or not House Hunters, Ghost Hunters did a documentary there at the house, and they found Dorothea's spirits in the house. There's been multiple books. This is The Bone Garden by William P. Wood. This is Human Harvest, the Sacramento Murder Story by Daniel Blackburn. And the weirdest of all, Cooking with a Serial Killer by Dorothea Puente. It's got her poetry in here. The cookies that you guys are eating now are in here, and I gotta say they're not that good. I know, I'm sorry. So that's why I brought you the other cookies as a non-serial killer made foodstuffs. But it also has artwork in here, and they're suspicious of if she actually did the artwork herself. This is the picture of her when she was younger and as a Rockette. But she's just a really strange human. Well, obviously, because she's a serial killer. So it just goes to show, you know, you never really know who your neighbors might be and what they might be trying to cover up with their sweet smells of baked goods. Have a good one.